Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, which is a sequel to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a spin-off of the Harry Potter franchise. Directed by the returning David Yates, who has directed the past 6 Harry Potter films, Crimes of Grindelwald follows Newt Scamander, played again by Eddie Redmayne, as he searches for Credence Barebone, a young obscurus who is being hunted by the Ministry of Magic. However, matters become complicated when the dark wizard Grindelwald, played by Johnny Depp, escapes from prison and begins searching for Credence as well, offering him the truth about his origins. Newt and his allies must find Credence before Grindelwald co-opts him into his growing movement of wizard supremacy, which threatens the world of wizard and muggle alike. Now, I've been a fan of the Harry Potter franchise since the first novel was released. The franchise was a phenomenon, and as a kid, I read all of the novels and saw all of the movies. I continue to rewatch all of the movies even years later, as they hold a special place in my heart. Not all of these movies are great or as well put together as the last, but they have classic characters and moments that have made an impact on myself and those around the world. As a result, I was excited to see the first Fantastic Beasts when it was announced, and upon seeing it, I found myself enjoying it. It wasn't on the level of the best Harry Potter films, and the setting wasn't as interesting as Hogwarts, but I liked it nonetheless, as well as the characters introduced in it. As a result, when Crimes of Grindelwald was announced, I was looking forward to it. However, as trailers came out and it seemed that Grindelwald was hardly featured in them, I began to grow somewhat concerned. This was only compounded by the negative impressions I was hearing as the film was initially released. However, I decided to see it nonetheless, and upon seeing the movie, I'd have to say that I understand these reactions because this film does have a number of problems. Now let me first start out with some of the things I liked. Eddie Redmayne returns as Newt Scamander, and I think that he did well with the material he was given. He's shown to be a good actor in other films, and his character certainly feels more fleshed out than a number of those around him. He also gets more of his backstory explained in this film, such as his time as a student at Hogwarts. We also meet his brother Theseus, played by Callum Turner, who he has an estranged relationship with. We're also introduced to Newt's old lover and brother's fiancée, Leta Lestrange, played by Zoe Kravitz. This dynamic plays a part in the story, as well as Newt's on-again, off-again relationship with Catherine Waterston's Tina, who is also trying to save Credence from the Ministry. Jude Law is also in this film as a young Albus Dumbledore, and he does a really good job with the portrayal. I can imagine a younger Dumbledore being like him, someone who is clearly kind, but has a rough past and is incredibly powerful. However, he's largely removed from the plot of this film as he's unable to directly move against Grindelwald. And speaking of Grindelwald, Johnny Depp reprises his role here from the last movie. Now at first, I wasn't really a fan of the reveal at the end of the first movie that Colin Farrell's character was actually Depp all along. I thought Farrell fit the role very well, and I expected Depp to be too goofy. However, I think that Depp did a really good job in this role. Grindelwald spends much of his screen time swaying those around him in his direction and towards his supremacist goals. Depp's portrayal shows why this villain would have been so persuasive. It's interesting seeing him form his army. However, as the trailers implied, he's hardly in this movie, and when he isn't really given enough to do, although he does have some good scenes along the way. And this leads into the biggest problem with this movie, that it's too unfocused, and what the movie chooses to focus on is often far less interesting than the actual plot. There's so many characters in this movie with a number of different subplots, and most of them lack the focus that allows us to care. All at one time, we have the story about Dumbledore and Grindelwald, the relationship between Newt, his brother, and Tina. Then we have the relationship between Tina's sister Queenie and the muggle Jacob Kowalski from the first movie that deals with wizard-muggle relationships. Then we have the story about Credence searching for his past, an entire subplot with a Lestrange family that connects to the main story, and all the while Newt is tracking down Credence and containing beasts while trying to decide which side he's on in a coming war led by Grindelwald. There's so much going on that they shove into the movie that the plot often takes a back seat. The actors do fine with their respective roles, but the focus jumps around so often to these half-baked stories. As a result, the movie is oftentimes boring, and you come away from it hardly caring about much of the events, in large part because it feels like the whole thing is filler or setup. And some of the main Harry Potter movies also have this filler and setup problem, but the characters are much better defined and given more room to breathe, while here they could have trimmed much of it down without losing anything of real merit. As for another positive, I think that David Yates did a decent job directing for the most part. However, I wasn't as impressed by the cinematography. While there are some nicely composed shots here and there, the film is way too dark. Oftentimes, I had a hard time seeing what was happening. It looks like they made the film significantly darker in post-production, and it didn't really help matters here. I know the film is meant to be a dark story, but that doesn't mean that they have to make the visuals this dark or with such a dull color palette. I also like the Beast, who were the namesake of the series, but they were largely an afterthought here. They felt like they were just shoved into the movie to fill a quota, like a number of other characters and moments. The movie feels a lot like Solo, a Star Wars story in that way. I also wasn't a fan of how certain information and revelations were revealed, such as with Creedon's survival and Jacob's memories returning, and what should have been big plot reveals are handled with lazy exposition. Other details also felt unnecessary, like how Nagini was a person in the past. Her character only has about 3 lines in total, and feels kinda pointless as a result. Also, the big reveal with Credence's character is kind of a head-scratcher that is a questionable choice from J.K. Rowling, like many other elements of the film. So overall, Crimes of Grindelwald is a disappointing follow-up that really could have been better. Its story is unfocused, oftentimes boring, and makes unnecessary changes to the source material. Much of it feels like filler to pad out the Fantastic Beasts saga, although it does pick up toward the end of the movie, and there are some interesting moments along the way. But those occasional moments don't really elevate the film to much more than slightly above average, if that. I don't know if I'd say that this is really the worst Harry Potter film. I'm not quite sure it annoyed me as much as 4 or 6, but on future rewatches, I may find that opinion changing. For now, I'm going to give Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald a 6 out of 10. Hopefully the next film in the series will be better. If they shift the focus more toward Dumbledore and Grindelwald and improve upon the flaws of this film, I could see it being really good, especially if they get into the real confrontation between these two great wizards. In the meantime, I don't think that this is really necessary to see in theaters, unless you're a huge Harry Potter fan, and even then you'd probably be fine just waiting for streaming or the Blu-ray. So what did you think of Fantastic Beasts 2? Did you like it, or were you disappointed? Let me know down below. Also, if you're new to this channel, then make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so that you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And if you like this video, then make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe, enable those damn notifications.